the last 17 shows. But today we're asking, do they live up to the hype the fanboys say they are? Because today on this show, we're going to be uncovering the magic of the Tokyo Marui Fairy Dust with arguably one of the most knowledgeable stores and owners in the UK. Stay tuned. It is time for Airsoft Radio. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Airsoft Radio, your weekly Airsoft show discussing all things Airsoft, whether it's news, opinions, or just some general discussions. I'm Graham, your host from Airsoft Nation, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts. We have Jim, just over here.
Hello.
Antisociably looking down.
I'm trying to share something to do with this, and it ain't working.
No, I just tried
Fucking
as well.
technology. It's bullshit.
And right below me, we do have Call Sign Tactiquin, aka Sarah.
Hello.
Good to have you once again. And our special guest of the evening for episode 18, the man behind Eagle 6, a company that specializes in all things TM and much more, of course. We have Richard Young down there below.
Hello.
If it is your first time watching the show, welcome. We are live every single Monday from 8 p.m. GMT on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you're watching live, don't forget you can leave your opinions and questions below, and we will feature them throughout the show. And don't forget, if you're on the go, many of you guys will say, I start tuning in, can't watch all the show all the way through. You can download Airsoft Radio on your favorite podcasting platform. You just need to search Airsoft Radio. And don't forget to drop us a review, because I know Jim is desperate to see some going through the listings. We keep asking. So yeah, why not drop a review while you're there? With that said, let's get into the show. Richard, for anyone who's been living under a rock, can you just give us a quick rundown as to who you are and a little bit about Eagle 6?
So I'm Richard Young, and I'm the owner of Eagle 6 Airsoft. We've been going as an actual physical store that people can visit for about 2 years now, a bit over. And before that, we was running online only via our website for about 7 years, I think, 6 years before that. Just generally started around about in Airsoft about 14 years ago. After about 3 or 4 years, that's when Next Generation Recoil shot come out from Tokyo Marui, and that's when I got interested in those specifically and started specializing. So just generally helping out with the community to start off with, and eventually naturally sort of evolved into Eagle 6 over time. So,
oh, very cool. So that's rivalry there between the longest playing Airsofter on the stream. We will definitely come back to the Tokyo Marui side in a minute. But before we do that, let's, as we always do, find out what everyone's been up to this week. Jim, do you want to go first this week?
Can do, yeah. I got shot in the lip. That really fucking hurt. I was at Reaper Ops Airsoft, where Sarah was marshalling, and went out in the afternoon. First game, first shot, straight in the mouth. Yes, before the comment section goes, you should have worn a mesh lower.
Face mask.
Like, yeah, I could also play fucking paintball, but I don't. So, but yeah, so really, really fun afternoon. I completely trashed one of my guns earlier on in the week, so I ended up borrowing a mate's MP7, and I've decided that I need to have one of those in my life. And it's a TM as well, so it couldn't have happened at a better time, really, could it?
I think with the MP7s, I think Tokyo Marui is the only way to go, as I was talking to a friend recently, and it was like, there ain't a lot of choices out there.
I don't know. I'm interested to see that the Umrex AEG one. I've still not managed to get my hands on one yet, but it's that could be.
It's TM or the VFC one's got a lot, hasn't it? Yeah.
Well, only one of them's now officially licensed. So.
Oh, yes.
I mean, prices seem to be going up on VFC stuff quite a lot because of the licensing. I mean, TM is generally considered quite expensive, but if you look at some of the prices of some of the VFCs now, they're quite low in stock at most places, and you know, prices seem to be going quite high. So, yeah, just interesting trend I've seen. So, I'd definitely be interested to see what the internals of that VFC one looks like. So, just Umrex, you know. So, I'm curious if it's the same as the TM, you know, sort of style.
We hope.
Well, the gun is larger, isn't it? I think so. So because obviously the TM one's not 1-to-1 scale. So
and so yeah, the VFC is 1-to-1, isn't it?
Yeah. So it bugs you as a TM owner because you really want to push the TM one so hard. But yeah, that one little thing. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to go with a TM and just shake them one day and just say why. So, I'm assuming it's a carryover from their AEG. They built it quite a long time ago. That micro gearbox, 12 years ago, I think. So, and I think it might have been a carryover from when they had to do things or thought they had to do things a certain way, you know. So legally speaking, you know. So. Yeah, it's just kind of stuck and carried over to the other. So
it always seemed to me like it was their revenge because it was like the Glock 18C kind of electric pistol one. It was like, we're just going to put that in an MP7 just to piss everyone off. Hated those things.
I would say the gearbox. There's a lot going on in such a small space for that. That's for sure.
I think it's an amazing piece of engineering. So just how small it is. The you know, you're talking a piston and cylinder, which is like that small, and yet it can still produce, you know, 240 FPS. Some upgraded have even got 300. So which is just mental considering the air volume that's actually in there. So yeah.
So it is magic.
It is.
There are fairies.
It's fairy dust.
It's because of the magic.
I
just want to read out this comment. This is perfect. Jim, you don't wear a lower face mask because you're a man's man.
That's why I grew a beard. It's supposed to stop the BBs, but
That was brilliant. You guys feel free to comment throughout. It's great to have you here this evening. So obviously you were at Reaper Ops, and also so was Sarah.
I was, yes, indeed.
So you had a different game because you weren't playing this time.
No, I wasn't, and it was interesting to see it from a different perspective because when you're playing and you're in it, you're not really paying attention as to everything that's happening in one go. You're just concentrating on what you're doing. When you're watching everyone, it's like you've got to have eyes everywhere, and I think it was a full house almost, wasn't it, Jim?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's worth saying you weren't being a photographer, you weren't being a spectator, you were marshalling.
Yeah.
Before anyone goes, what were you doing there then?
No, it was good. The first half of the day I was sort of wandering around thinking, am I doing the right thing? But it only really got busy for me when I was told to go and sit in the yellow team's respawn, where a lot of people were shooting into. So,
and a lot of the yellow team were also in it at the time.
Yeah, people behind boundaries, people all over the show. So yeah, people falling down holes and going home early because of non-hit taking and but it was a good day.
A normal day at Airsoft.
An average day at Airsoft, yeah, exactly. But no, I definitely do it again. I'm not totally giving up playing.
And how about you, Richard? Was there any games going on this weekend? Were you out playing? Or was it work?
Work. So to be honest, I feel a bit guilty if I played, So it's people kind of want me to gun tech and to know their guns and support them playing. So that became my hobby, So, that kind of thing where you're in a car park and somebody brings you their gun and says, "Do you mind fixing it?" And you find yourself doing that week on, week out. So it's just, that's my hobby now. So normal aircraft.
I was going to say, I bet you get to sites and if you're recognised, it's like, oh no, here we go. Someone's got something broken, or they're going to give a bag of parts and say, "Can you fix it for the first game?"
It's a lot of pressure. So I think, you worry, don't you, about going there, if you know what I mean, and you get a negative or positive because there's that social thing, isn't there, for companies and or names, if you know what I mean, or names. So yeah, I tend to sort of focus just on keeping my head down and gun teching away, So
Yeah, I mean, that's when the lower face mask goes on, the helmet goes on, the goggles go on. You are non-recognizable at that point.
Last time I did the Eagle 6 hoodie, so
Oh.
even the same thing. So because you can see the logos, but no, I don't mind if they come to me in a game. It's fine. So and talk tech talk and whatnot. So it's all airsoft. So.
Some brilliant comments coming in there. Tell them to go away. You're playing. If only players listen to that.
What were you up to?
I was not playing. As if you're a long-time listener of the show, you'll know I've taken an extended leave from work, and that is now finished, and I'm back to the 9 to 5, and I'm in a lot of debt and unpaid. So I am just holding out for my first payday this week so that I can play soon. And obviously the NAE's coming up, or NAF's coming up, which I will be just camping. It's got that bad. So I was like, look, is it beer money or is it £100 to play airsoft in a clusterfuck of game? I was like, you know what? I'll just take beer money and camping money. That'll do me nicely. So yeah, no games. Although hopefully payday's Thursday. I'm looking for a game on Sunday. All my sites that I would normally go to are not playing this Sunday, so it may be a new one for me. But we shall see how I feel at the end of the week. Obviously, the Invicta Weekender was on at the weekend, which was a cracking one. Gutted to have missed that. But what did happen over the weekend, and this is something I definitely want to talk about, is the G&G World Cup. Now, a lot of people in the comments may not even have heard about it, or it's very quiet, but essentially that's 35 teams from 24 countries competed over the weekend. I think it was about a 3 or 4 day tournament for $20,000 worth of cash prizes. It was held in Taipei, and it was kind of a 5-stage event. And obviously that went on all over the weekend. I've got a video to show here. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. Is this something that, obviously it is G&G specific here, but is it something that would interest more people? You know, did you see it yourself? Is it something that would be interesting to you? And is it something that's fun to watch? Because it didn't seem to be a lot of coverage. Yet that's a big prize fund, really. So, Jim, what's your thoughts about this?
Well, it's just that weird column of women with signs there just freaked me out a little bit for a second.
Oh, it's like the They treat it like the Olympics. Yeah. There is a full-blown ceremony, the whole lot.
It's yeah, I mean, it looks really cool. Does anyone ever compete from the UK in it? Because I don't think
we had 2 teams.
Oh, really?
What was interesting is a player actually reached out to me last week and was like, "Oh, I'm going to the G&G World Cup." I didn't even actually catch what country he was playing for. So I would actually drop him a message after that. How did you go from watching G&G World Cup to programming Visual Basic all in one go there? Thanks, YouTube. So yeah, I mean, you're right. It does look like fun. Let's not play that video. We don't care. It does look like a lot of fun. There were 5 stages. So the first one, you may have saw there, it's the MET target range, where there is, was it about 40 targets and you're timed. And it's interesting, there's 2 of you. So it's you and a partner. So you have to kind of run around an obstacle, go back there, and then fire as quick as you can at the targets. Next stage is a sniper spotter type of scenario where one of you are shooting down the long range and another one's kind of going up the side. Then they've got a search and destroy, which is where you've got to carry a case while firing the gun. If you drop the case, if you step out of boundary, anything like that, you're disqualified. Then we have your traditional room clearance. And then finally, the one which most people will have seen before in these videos is the full CQB course, where you are running around across barricades and stuff like that, clearing each rooms. It looked really good fun. Japan won, so Japan came first. Then Netherlands were second. Congrats to those guys.
So it's Tokyo Marui recalls again.
Unfortunately, the G&G World Cup only enables you to use the G&G. The results could have been very different otherwise. And then, yes, the Netherlands came second, and that was the NABV were very much all over this and promoting it. And Czech Republic came third. The UK came 8th and 9th. We had 2 teams there, which is really cool. Sarah, what about yourself? Is that something that would be interesting to you?
I didn't even know it existed until you mentioned it the other week, and that's what we were going to talk about. I'm surprised that more people don't talk about it, and there's not a lot of coverage. We get more coverage from the exhibition shows like IWA and SHOT Show, loads of coverage from that, but not an actual contest. So that's a shame, really. I think it'd be cool to go and be a spectator at something like that, because it does look really, really awesome. But it's just a shame that it doesn't get the coverage that it probably deserves, really, in the airsoft world. How long's it been going for? Has it been going a long time?
Years.
Yeah,
Absolute years.
I don't really get that.
I want to say this is probably the 6th event, 7th event, maybe even more than that, or maybe far off. What about you, Richard? You know, you've been around as long as we have. Have you seen any of this before? Is it something that interests you? Do you think it's something that could be taken, you know, from the competitive side more seriously?
Yeah, I think airsoft just in general is now starting to get bigger just than it ever used to be. And it's now starting to be, you know, the UK market is getting bigger, and you're now starting to see other markets which are already well established and, you know, big, like obviously the market in Japan, which we have no clue about, if you know what I mean, which is arguably one of the biggest, you know, yet we don't see it. So, and suddenly we're all now starting to get into this and seeing these other events going on. I mean, they do IPSC shooting every year, a UK team. I think Red Wolf Airsoft runs that. So it's great fun to watch and whatnot, but advertising with anything is always going to be difficult because, you know, is G&G going to fund advertising everywhere and getting everybody involved? I mean, it's shows like this which are going to help mainly because they're pushing forward the industry by getting more information out there and discussing topics, and that's what is needed, I think, you know. So the only other thing we can comment on is the G&G Met system. I've got that installed in our range here, and it's really good. So we've got 25 of the targets set up here, so it's it's really good, but nobody uses it, so that's one thing. So I don't know why, but just from a training perspective, nobody comes in and trains with it. So I mean, we are quite rural where we are, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. So
does it only work with G&G BBs and G&G?
Stuff and tells me no. So no.
It confuses the Tokyo Marui fairies.
It seems there are definitely people who aren't a fan of G&G stuff, but I mean, I think that it's a really cool thing. I think you're right, Richard, in the fact that we're kind of selfishly centered around our own community, and we've got no idea what happens over there from the size and the events. We will talk about the Tokyo Marui Festival later on, but I think that's the thing. I mean, you start looking at Taiwan and Japan and countries over there, but they've got their own ecosystem and their own communities there, which are probably far surpass what we've got over here. Which is probably why we don't see so much of the promotion, because unless G&G are, you know, heavily invested in UK side to promote stuff like that. I do know Charlie from G&G in the US did a lot of live streaming from his phone, but again, I just don't think, obviously, he's not got the reach over here in the UK. So yeah, maybe it's just a lot bigger over that side of the world than it is over here.
Yeah, big companies, they're going to look around and they're going to be, looking at where they're going to invest the money and what markets are the biggest. And, you know, when you speak to some of the manufacturers and you say, can you do this? Can you do that for us? You know, it would really help out the UK market. It's really important over here. They just look and think, nah, so I'd rather do some anodized bits or something with, you know, or some HVA fittings or something for another market, just because they have to be trending bigger and, you know, and larger and stuff. So just for TM and next gen, it's very niche. You know, it's been very difficult to push that forward, you know, going for the past 10 years to get various companies to develop things for it. So you keep emailing and badgering, and really it's the UK, well, no, it's just generally the market and supporters of TM now that have managed to, you know, by buying the gun and you know, owning them, if you know what I mean, has now got the attention of a lot of manufacturers and stuff like Laylax and some of the other companies that are making, you know, parts for NGRS now, and you know, luckily they're starting to support it, and the more support a platform gets, the bigger it is. It's a simple fact. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, if you are watching live right now, do us a favor. Go and share this show. Help us promote this, get the show bigger. And of course, jump on with your thoughts about Tokyo Marui, because we're going to be digging into that. I also want to say that something that we always say we're going to do ahead of the show and never actually go to is to say that this show is supported by Airsoft Nation. So if you are looking to buy and sell your secondhand kit, you're looking to find your local sites or retailers, you want to find out exactly where Eagle 6 is, you can use the Airsoft Nation map. And don't forget, you can just join other players in the community. You can head along to airsoftnation.co.uk or download your apps, whether it's on Apple or Android. It'd be great to have you there and join the rest of the Airsoft Nation community. Now, let's dig into TM. Obviously, you said that you got into Tokyo Marui. Did you say 6 or 7 years ago? The NGRS?
So NGRS came out 12 years ago now. So the first one technically. So yeah, it's a while.
I didn't realize the NGRS has been going that long.
So people focus on the M4, but technically two years ahead, or nearly 3 years before it came out, the AK-74, so MN, and that was a massive flop. So like, flop. Like to the point where some of the larger stores were selling them off at half price flop. So they were just, not a successful thing. TM even discontinued it. It was such a flop. So and it's just the wrong gun at the wrong time. They shouldn't have started with that one, but they did. It's also missing bolt stop, which can put people off, because essentially what draws people to next gen recoils is that they are, or they were at the time 10 years ago, the cheapest option for a training weapon type gun. So and it allowed people to get arguably Systema features for 1/3 the price. So so as much as people hate on the TM price, it's nowhere near what a Systema cost, or did back in the day. So and that's why that one came out. And it was so after in 2010, I think it was, the M4 next gen come out, so the soft mod. And that changed things dramatically, because we all know AK doesn't sell massively well compared to M4. And obviously once M4 come out, that just, everything just took off in Japan and over here, if you know what I mean. So it's not like maybe like AA, the AA-12, which was an amazing gun that TM did, which just doesn't sell over here, and it doesn't. It's an amazing ingenious thing that they did, and they took people's suggestions and did something different. When people always ask, I'm fed up with M4, and then when something different comes out, they don't buy it. So, and then ultimately the manufacturers see that, and then they won't make it again, which is probably what they're going to do with that. So but in America it is actually selling really well, so so it's trending massively over there. So
it's because they all like that high cap hero attitude of just launching a million rounds at each other. I've been down the
mag sells at the moment, isn't it? ARP9, stick a drum mag on it.
I've been down the Jow corridor when Matt's Fury King unleashed that beast upon all of us. Man, that corridor was just covered in BBs. You could just hear it going one after another. But I think you're right in terms of technology, in terms of the way that triple barrel, triple hop up system. Obviously, I know we've got the DT4 now, but before that, there was nothing really of the such where we had multiple barrels and multiple hops like that. I mean, it's a fantastic piece, and that was one of the things we were talking about for sure.
It was an amazing piece of kit. So, but it's the main thing that sort of like I say, the main thing that was successful about the NGRS is that the innovation. So, as in Tokyo Marui as a company was losing out big time. If you go back in time, if you know what I mean, to when they were sort of the only manufacturer of airsoft guns. So obviously they created the first one. And the problem with that is that when you pioneer things, everybody else sees good ideas and then copies them, but then does them better. And I'm pretty sure in business there's actually a term for somebody that make something, but then somebody else comes out, does it 10 times better, and ultimately takes over. And if you think back in the day, the classic armies, they were dominating. So, and you don't think too much of them about them nowadays. So, but the fact that they were doing metal bodies, and just that was everything that was appealing to, especially UK airsofters, because we are very much about that sort of realistic guns, because we don't have the real ones over here, and we all want realistic, and we want mil-simi, and yeah, basically they were offering better ones. So Taiwan Airsoft started taking off big time because they were selling loads, if you know what I mean. So, but in the background, you had these TM just still selling and still doing good things. P90 was a really good one for TM. M14. M14. M14 was a good move for TM in terms of hop unit. They made a really good hop unit change in design, and they made a gun which in the UK was getting such a reputation for outranging other AEGs that people were just buying M14 based on how well it was ranging and stuff. I don't know if you guys remember that, if you know what I mean. From when
and the other thing is Blackhawk Down. I think as airsofters, we get a lot of inspiration from films, movies, trends at the time, and Blackhawk Down was the perfect time when the M14 was available. The amount of the loadouts went that way. And you're right, it wasn't only it suits the loadout, it's like, this is a really good rifle that just works, and it isn't another M4.
It was an interesting trend, and that's where you start to see tech type stuff coming over, if you know what I mean. There is, in any sport or competitive sport, if you don't like this, there's always going to be that demand for that competitive edge, if you know what I mean. So, and it's, I suppose, something we'll discuss today, if you know what I mean, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, if you know what I mean, that everybody should be really eking out every last tiny inch of every single game. Me personally, I think it's a very important part of airsoft. Like, if you think about how many accessories and stuff available, how many guns are available in airsoft, that's what draws people in. If it was just one gun available and just one accessory part and one scope, nobody would be interested in airsoft. So when people come into the store, I tell them they're starting at level 1 and there's like 1,000 levels to go. The sheer choice is what makes airsoft so great, and upgrading and that customization is just another part of that. It's almost a sport in itself, so
yeah. One of the listeners who are there tuned in, George, did a video at another retailer, and one of the questions in the YouTube video was like, how many guns are on the wall here? And we're talking different rifles, and there were like hundreds. Granted, it's a big decent retail store, but that just shows the amount of variation. Although I did have to ask, I was like, how many of these are M4 variants? Given that some of the rifles there have the 16 variations of the same body. But you're right. I think you're right. It's great to have the option and flexibility as to what model that you want on there. And Tokyo Marui tend to offer a lot of variation out there, although granted they do have their top sellers.
They get it in the neck a bit, if they bring out another, I mean, like the Mark 18 variant, everybody was like, why do they need a Mark 18? We've already got Mark 18s. But the truth is, a lot of people just want to be able to go into a store and buy just the gun in the shape that they want, if you know what I mean, and that's what variants do, essentially give you that off the shelf, just, thank you very much, I'll take that, and it just makes it easier, if you know what I mean, to do that, rather than having to speak to a gun tech, if you know what I mean, and say, well, what kind of many different things do I have to do to culminate together to give me the gun that I actually want, but like I say, upgrading, it's in custom rails and all that sort of thing, it's all there. Just the variant is just trying to give somebody a really quick and easy access to one. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of love in the comments for some of the older Tokyo Marui models, which are still running nice today. And I think you're right. Earlier on, you were talking about how Classic Army came out with more metal bodies, and I think we had that conception or the assumption that plastic was so much more fragile than metal, and therefore we wanted that longevity out of our rifles. Whereas Tokyo Marui have always made plastic due to their own legislation over there.
So they've always done plastic on their standard series. But yeah, like I say, as a company, they've been going a very long time, and things seem to be changing over there. So, and it's difficult to know exactly whether it's a legislation change that happened, or if they just decided to be more competitive. Because like I say, they were losing out. It was just why buy a full plastic TM at say £200, if you know what I mean, when you can get an equivalent classic army which is full metal for the same price. So so I think they had to evolve naturally as a company, and their evolution of that was to come out with what they called their next generation series, which was meant to be an evolution of the original AEG that they created in the first place. So with the M4 and also to a degree with the AK, they generally took everything that was wrong with the original gun, including whether it was plastic made, including if there was not enough hop on it, or gearbox designs, problem with V2 gearboxes that we all know and hate. They took all of these things and they then addressed all of those. If you go through a next gen, M4, they've got much better gearbox design. So inspection holes, all kinds of changes and stuff. In my YouTube videos, I go over all the different changes and stuff over many years. But they suffice to say they've improved loads of things. Much better hop unit. They seem to do that in every single gun that they come out with. It's just they're always evolving what the hop unit is, and then they added some features which got a lot of criticism on the AK, calling it gimmicky. They got the recoil system, which gives you that immersion into it. So as it's firing, the gun shakes. They have a separate blowback system, which is to simulate the actual bolt reciprocating backwards and forwards, which a lot of guns have. Now that's different from the recoil system, which is actually physically shaking. And then they have the bolt stop on the M4, so it will shut off the gun completely when it's out of ammo, and it will feed every last BB because of the mag changes they did. So that meant at the time you had to buy all new proprietary mags for both the AK and the M4. It brought them more in line with real steel size mags, which was more beneficial and happier for people. So, and I like that they did that. I just wish all changes with regards to TM's changes were about making it more real. Sometimes, like a sound box and headphones with a VSR is just about fun. Japan, like I say, sometimes they just go a weird direction, but it's fun stuff.
So, Sarah, I'm going to throw this to you as the newer Airsofter of the show on here. Have you used a TM? And what is your what do you hear about TM? And be truthfully honest here.
Well, I don't really get why everyone's always having a go at TMs. I don't get that. I do have a TM, but it is a pistol. It's the hard kick Desert Eagle.
Oh, Desert Eagle, yes, of course.
And I love that gun. I love it so much. I was having a little go of it yesterday, and I've had it basically all of my airsoft time that I've been playing airsoft, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But I don't understand why everyone always has a go at Tokyo Marui. I just don't get it, because okay, people get people love the TM recoils. That's the thing I hear. I've got a TM recoil. I've got a TM recoil. And then other people that don't have one are going, oh, I've got a TM recoil. That's all I hear. But yeah, no, I don't understand the hate on it, because I love my pistol, and I'll probably, when I have enough money, I probably will get a TM recoil just to piss off the haters.
I'd say there are a lot of people in the comments saying like TM for life, and you're right. I mean, there is a lot of hate. I mean, we've given it plenty of stick, or I personally have given it a lot of stick on the show. Although saying that, if you are watching live, you can see, or if you're listening to me on the podcast, I do have a couple of Tokyo Marui pistols. It seems to be. And Jim, I see if you hear this one in the shop. Tokyo Marui pistols don't get a lot of slack. It's just the rifles, whether it's due to the pricing or the fact that they got the recoil gimmick, shall we say.
I think it's just what you get with any premium brand. It's like the same people that go, "Oh, why'd you not buy an iPhone? You must be some kind of thrown in an iPhone." And it's like, don't want one, don't own one,
Okay, peasant.
Just so people know I have an iPhone. TMs are wicked. They're a really cool bit of kit. They do some really cool things, but it sucks that there's not more metal TM stuff. And I think their pistols are way overhyped now and way overpriced for what they are. There's a lot of competitors out there that I think are doing slightly better pistols, and TM have sort of slipped a little bit there, in my opinion. Ever since they brought out the Glock 17 Custom, their pistols went downhill, in my opinion, before anyone starts losing their shit on the internet, as they say.
It's because it's a Glock.
They will lose their shit. I mean, obviously, I've got to disagree. Just the fact that I've got 50 over there or whatever, but it's the holster
issue. That's the biggest problem with them, is that you can rarely find a good holster to fit them because of the oversize. And even when you do find a good one, then you've got to use lower powered gases, because the moment you put a high pressure or even just put a winter gas in it, the fucking thing cracks and blows apart, and you end up having to spend a fortune fixing them. Sorry.
We tested them all in store, pretty much sort of 1 degree temperatures, because we're in an industrial unit here, and it gets pretty cold. So we can indoor test at those kind of temperatures, and we were getting on just absolutely fine with testing them. We didn't put black winter gas in there and then just instantaneously explode or anything like that. And we've gone through and tested all of them. So we're not getting those instant failures that people are saying. So if we're not getting the instant failures, does that mean they're either doing something wrong or they're just unlucky? Yeah. In which case, if they're just unlucky, they're going to tell the internet that, because not do so straight away. But I don't. TM guns should vent the gas above 300 FPS. Yeah, there's a small valve inside that shouldn't allow it to go above that. By law, they're not allowed to in Japan. So they designed the guns to do that in case somebody accidentally goes out on a hot day or puts in stronger gases and stuff. So it shouldn't. We all know we can put stronger gas in there, and we can eke out a bit more from these, and they do fire faster and quicker on the stronger gases. At the end of the day, I would personally run my TM above that, and I would go out absolutely not worried about it breaking. And the reason being is that we all decide in life to run things a bit faster, drive our cars a little bit harder and stuff like that. I would rather enjoy my product that I've bought, if you know what I mean, than and if it does break, get a new bit, repair it. So that's hopefully. I mean, I know as in Airsoft, as a general rule, when guns break, we can't find parts to fix them. But in theory, we've been trying to change that a little bit, if you know what I mean, in that we're trying to make as many parts available for TM guns as possible, so that when shit does happen, you can get the parts for that, so, and you can get it repaired and stuff. So it's not so much of a, oh my God, my gun's broken, end of the world type thing. So that's what we've been trying to do. So my take on them, they got better and better ever since I'd say ever since the Glock 17. That one, the slides are slightly wrong in terms of dimensions for fitting in holsters, but on the Glock 19 they addressed that, and that now is a perfect size. So the Glock 19, I don't know if you use that one. That's just amazing performance. So they just nailed it. They changed the internals, if you know what I mean, to a bigger cylinder sizes. So it's just better performance in winter. The slide now sizes are all proper. It's just nailed it. So I'd love to see him do it again, but TM unfortunately don't do that. So
one of the few I do like now is the HK45, and that's a really nice pistol. But again, there's not enough support for them in terms of, I think the same with the Mark 23s. That's why there's so many aftermarket companies sort of bringing out their bits and bobs, and it often feels like TM don't necessarily love their own products sometimes enough. They sort of release it into the world and then go, you'll have to go to someone else if you want a new bit for it, or if you're a holster. Why would you want a holster? What are you doing with it? Oh, it says not for shooting another person on the box. It's always my bugbear.
I'm glad you said the HA45, because that was my purchase in December. Yeah, in December. And I love that pistol. It was to replace my Mark 23 in CQB sights. And I love the Mark 23. Big shout out to Brad Nouse there for the TM Mark 23 Master Racer right there, and they're on the shirt there. But the HA45 has been a fantastic performer, and that's one thing you can say about Tokyo Marui pistols generally all year round. Even in winter, you're going to get a good performance out of them.
Yeah.
obviously mainly because of the polymer. But Richard, as you were saying there, quality control. Would you say that's something that has improved massively on the Tokyo Marui side?
Yeah. Even, I mean, TM's considered like, one of the higher ones in terms of quality control, but you look at some of their, it's not so much their quality control has improved, right? So definitely, but mainly their design and how they design guns has improved. Yeah. So they're constantly trying to innovate to that next level. And don't get me wrong, there's innovation in lots of other companies out there, massive amounts of innovation nowadays. But TM specifically, they change and improve every single one of them. So some of their guns, like if I see somebody referring to a G3 SG1, they've recently bought or something like that, and then comparing that, as a TM standard, well, that's a gun that was made 20 years ago now. So it's just, you can't compare that to a gun that's been designed, on modern. Well, they did have CAD back then, but let's be honest, it's 20 years ago. That was olden times in terms of designing things. So people's skills and knowledge and stuff, and designer knowledge and designers, there's no way they've got the same designers now, if they previously had 20 years ago. So things are changing. I know that I'm sure they tweeted a little while ago where they said they got like 3 or 4 new actual CAD designers and stuff in TM's thing, and one of the new ones made the new gas blowback Type 89, and that was like his first gun he designed, and yet it came out amazing in terms of things. So it's nice that they're sort of expanding their CAD thing, and the company, if you look at the actual company itself, is huge. So it's they've got like 5, I think, different factories. They've got a production like area type thing where they just transport stuff, and they got the actual main company building itself. They are huge in terms of company, but they are Japan focused. So, and I don't know if that's trademark reasons that they're sort of not willing to sort of go out. I know one person that did an interview there said that in a write-up that he did, said that they just weren't willing to commit to a second production line. So essentially they've got all this infrastructure in place that produces guns at 300 FPS or less for the Japanese market, that does guns that are, some, like say, pistols that are plastic, and obviously now they've expanded with the next gen range, which is being a metal, and they just don't want to commit, I don't think, to a second one, which is for we'll call it the Western world, if you know what I mean, that's higher in power essentially, and also different internals. If you go to that next power level, or higher up power, is TM internals going to hold up to that, if you know what I mean, from TM's quality control perspective? So would they deem it not good enough, if you know what I mean, therefore having to then redo all the internals to a stronger internals and stuff to handle the bigger springs and bigger power? It'd be a massive investment for that company, I think so, and I don't know if they're willing to do that or even interested in doing it, so just as a company, and some of the bigger stores, to be honest, other than us, if you know what I mean, might have more information on that, because obviously they've got bigger buying power and people tend to take more notice to that, so, but just from what we've heard, that they aren't interested, if you know what I mean, in coming out of Japan. However, they do have a full servicing department, an entire building specifically for it, and people can send in their guns in Japan and they'll repair them and fix them and do all that sort of stuff, just not outside of Japan.
So I was going to ask this while you were talking about, you said about they tweeted it. I mean, they do have quite a big social presence, but again, as you say, it's very much for Japan. It's not too much for the Western world.
You can see that from their website, though, because it's like you go onto the Tokyo Marui website, it's all in Japanese.
Yeah.
And it's like, good luck trying to find out any information on it unless you speak Japanese fluently.
I think I've practically learned the language now from staring at their website so much.
So with that said, and again, they're a pretty closed up company. I mean, you can go to the factory door and order a rifle there, but in terms of actually seeing behind the closed doors, I remember there was like a leaked ad of them looking to grab some people for the factory, some operators. And in terms of factory operators, not airsoft operators, to work there, and everyone made a big deal out of seeing behind the scenes and behind the curtain of the factory, and they were like, "It's clean and it just looks like every other factory." But what's if there is any, what's your relationship like with them? Do they engage that much with the UK side and the retail side?
From my point of view, like I say, as a smaller company, we have to deal through wholesalers. So basically, contact a wholesaler in Japan, and then they, give us their pricing, and then we order from them. So as far as I'm aware, and speaking to the wholesalers now, that could be their particular, stance, if you know what I mean. But their official, thing to us, if you know what I mean, is that TM don't deal with anybody other than wholesalers, and that could be, like I say, trademark reasons. So if maybe because they've got loads of licensed trades, like loads of them. So some of them are through Cybergun, some through Madball, so some legitimately with the actual companies themselves. But all their products come, fully traded, just in Japan. So and therein lies the problem. Technically, should they be exporting? So which they aren't. So and they don't. So it's wholesalers in Japan which are doing that. So it's very difficult. We can't just phone up TM and say, I'd love a bunch of these parts. Yeah, I've got Joe over there. He really wants this bit for his gun. It's just unfortunately not like that. So we deal with wholesalers, preferably ones that speak English, and then trying our best, to get as many parts or guns or TM bits as we can, really. So just as fans ourselves, if you know what I mean, of the brand. So
yeah, I was gonna say, you guys, at least in my mind, are known as the guys that have most, if not all, parts for a TM. Whenever I've ran out of something, or primarily the Tokyo Marui feed lips are going, it's like, Eagle 6 will have them in. I presume at this point you just try and get whatever you can get your hands on when it comes down to spares from Tokyo Marui.
It's a tough one. So there's two different approaches you can take. So either stocking what people are requesting, so i.e. what's popular. The different approach that we took was stocking everything. So even if it's not popular, the only problem with that was dead stock, essentially.
Yeah.
So it is a big issue for us. So and that means obviously money tied up in that. You have to pay taxes on that. There's dead stock. It's just it's not great, which is why companies do like sales and stuff. When certain times of the year come around, they're just trying to shift as much as they can essentially before that. So it's a difficult thing. But our thing was to try and stock every single part for every single Tokyo Marui gun, so that every player can fix their gun. It was a bold thing, a little bit ambitious. I mean, we've tried, so as much as we can do as a small store, so we're always going to be limited by cash flow. So and obviously the more support we get, the bigger we get, the more we can do these things which we hoped people were liking, direction wise, and then supporting us. So but that's the concept anyway. So
and then, as we were talking earlier, and Andy Gray is in the comment section asking about this, so we'll talk about it. We were saying that Tokyo Marui don't really interact much with the Western world, especially in terms of airsoft shows. And again, Sarah was saying this at the start of the show. We have SHOT Show in Vegas where we get a large presence from the airsoft industry and manufacturers get involved. We've got IWA, again, huge presence on the airsoft side from manufacturing. But we never really get Tokyo Marui. Now, I'll say that there is definitely Tokyo Marui wholesalers there, but not present from Tokyo Marui themselves. They do run their own festival, which is essentially their own version, where they host open to players rather than trade, where they show and reveal their kind of latest lineup, and you can see all the variations, and it's a very much cosplay event in addition to that.
Ooh.
I was going to say, Sarah, it'd be right up what you'd be really interested in there.
Yeah, sounds good. Is that over in Japan?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. And they revealed last year the Mark 46. And Richard was right on top of that. And I know we've had a lot of chats in the past about this. What's your thoughts on the Mark 46? And I'll grab an image while it's coming up. But if you can break it down to people who may not have heard about it, because I think this is going to be one of the more interesting ones that come out this year from them. Yeah,
so TM, they're always trying to innovate with something a bit different. So, and obviously everybody's always asking for something different. I'd say the two most requested guns at the moment. So when every new festival comes out and they do all their announcements for the next year, this is what we're going to be bringing. Everybody always replies, with basically MP5 next gen recall, and the second one is a support gun, basically basically. And I don't know. I'd love to think that TM have actually listened to people badgering repeatedly year on year, but they've actually decided to release it. They technically made one about 12 years ago, which is a prototype MK249, but they never run it to production. It also wasn't next gen. So they just did a prototype, and TM actually prototyped loads of different stuff. But whether you actually then take it to full production is a completely different thing. When you have to do all the molds and stuff like that, as opposed to just rapid prototyping. So it's an amazing piece of kit. So it comes with a recoil system. So it's basically NGRS. So it has the full recoil to it, and it's a support gun, which is just mental.
Look at that.
So
wow,
it says in the Japanese translated that they've got a mechanism for shaking the bullets. So
I was going to say
that's a translation and a half there.
I can't tell if the mechanism is just it shaking, or if there's actually physically something in there. I mean, how I mean, most people struggle to just make a gun and make it work. TM, they've put something in there to shake bullets. So I mean, the engineering required for that is just, like I say, when they do something and they put their mind to it and they are slow to release, they do knock out an amazing gun, which is why people, are quite fanboyish around them. And the most important thing I think to note about this particular gun, and why I think it's going to appeal so well, despite the price tag, is that it has bolt stop. So in theory, this is a very mil-sim specific, and not the American mil-sim, which is basically Speedsoft, the UK mil-sim, which is actually mil-sim. So it will shut off the gun, which means you can sort of imagine in your mind like a support gunner actually doing a gunner roll, where they carry like a couple of box mags on you, and then like it runs out and you just have to drop the box mag out and then put a new box mag in. I think it's going to be amazing. So I hope it goes well. So
yeah, they're still using NIMS. How are they still using NIM batteries when you've got stuff like this coming out? To answer that question, you have to ask the person that invented the VSR with the sound box. He'll tell you. For anyone who's interested in this, another point to say for you smaller guys and girls out there, this is going to weigh at 6.6 kilograms. So it's not going to be a light one to take around with you on site. But
we'll keep asking for that metal. Now they're going to pay the price.
Yeah, and then go on then. Any idea what you would estimate? Obviously, this is just the biggest estimate right now, and I do know there are definitely some pre-orders going on.
So TM said on Twitter that after they got badgered quite a lot, they would be somewhere between 100,000 yen and 200,000 yen, which if you do some translations on that, it's quite rubbish exchange rates at the moment, it's somewhere between £800 and £1,500, I think. So,
wowee.
So TM originally didn't want to make it. So they said, no, I don't want to do it. So, and the reason was shipping costs. Essentially, so that's what I heard from multiple sources, if you know what I mean, including the online stuff. If you translate their bits and bobs, they essentially thought it was too expensive to produce. If you think about how long that gun is, how big the box is going to be, once you go over certain distances with transport costs, you're then into overweight shipping charges. Think about ordering 4 in a box. You're probably not going to be able to order 4. You're probably going to be able to order maybe 1 or 2 in a box, which means your import costs, if you're ordering per box and not doing sea freight, is going to be a lot. So yeah, it's going to be an expensive gun. So
Jim, gimmick.
I think the rumor I've had is that we're probably going to see it coming in about 1,200 quid. Like all said and done, you're going to be in that sort of ballpark. Which, if you can afford it, great, crack on, buy one. But it's what happens when that thing goes wrong. It's such a new gun that you'd hope that the parts are going to be available, and I'm sure if Richard's stocking them, he's going to have that covered. But what happens if they're not? Because, like you say, it's such a new gun. It is such a different system that we sort of saw this with the AA12, where it's an interesting gun, but to run that on, you can only run it on an 8.4 volt battery under warranty anyway. And the moment you try and change it, you get some really interesting problems with it. And I kind of think we're going to see the same thing with the Mark 46, because I imagine the electronics in that are a bit more complicated than your standard next gen recoil. So
it's coming up with the same MOSFET system as what's in the AA12. So in theory, what you're describing will be a similar situation with the thing. It's also got a custom gearbox, which is, I'm thinking, is along the lines of the AA12 as well. So I think they've ported over a lot of that technology they developed. So
I personally would not be buying one.
I'll be honest, I would love one.
What do you think to the idea of it, though? If somebody gifted you 1,200 quid and said all parts are available, what do you think then, if you're not into it, as a
well, I think it's one of those things that, like you say, there's a certain type of player that's for. I can probably only think of 2 or 3 guys, and they're probably both in direct action group, the team that could actually run around with one of those, because they're strong lads. But yeah, I just don't think. I mean, I've got a 249 Parrot. I love it. I don't use it enough. If you gave it to me for free, I'd probably say it was the worst present you could have given me, because I'm not into that much. And I'll probably end up having to sell it for rent, or something like that. But I mean, it is a nice idea, and I wonder if down the line we'll see some other more interesting guns. But it's sort of, we're going to pay the price, whereas in Japan, probably the rest of the world, they're going to have it a little bit easier owning that gun than we are over here in the smallest market.
Yeah.
I think there's an issue with a lot of sport guns, is they're just not reliable. And someone's always going to say, oh, this one works every single time. But a lot of my friends who have had support guns over the years, nothing's ever been reliable out the box. I'm not talking about people that want to upgrade it. I'm talking about people that just get it out and want to shoot it. And that's where I've got confidence behind this system. I've got a feeling if it's kept up the same Tokyo Marui standard, it's going to be a rifle that's going to be, out the box and reliable. Like you say, as long as you use the recommended battery. It'd be interesting to see how the mags are, because support gun mag boxes are always notorious at being crappy. But again, I've got a lot of faith behind the from Tokyo Marui. But my question would be, how long before someone wants to upgrade it, and does that cause issues? And generally, Tokyo Marui products, the amount of people that buy one and then gut half of it out, and obviously half of that is clearly in your interest, in the fact that you do a lot of tech work. But what's your thoughts?
Tech work, because we were asked to do tech work. So it's a sort of necessary thing with TMs. They are designed for a different market, and they do need to be increased in power if you want to be able to handle the heavier weights. So it's proven in a lot of range tests now. If you know what I mean, the people want more range. Whether they should or not is another thing, but want more range, and the way they do that is with heavier ammo. 280 FPS out of the box, you're going to struggle handling those heavier ammos. So a stock one will send it there, but it's just, are you going to be happy with that speed to target, knowing that you could just put a spring in there and essentially improve that? So and the next gen recoil, despite what people say, it will not break the moment you upgrade it with a power spring. It will not. So if you've done something wrong in there, then maybe it will. So you can do pretty reliable up to 400 FPS, if you know what I mean, before you start to see things take a downward turn pretty quickly, if you know what I mean. So, but really, if you're doing a 400 plus build, if you know what I mean, shouldn't you be changing your gears on most guns, So, it handles it really well. I say personally, if you're on a budget, just stick a spring in there, and it's relatively cheap. There's a YouTube video on our channel about how to do it. It's if you don't want to pay a gun tech to do it, it can be very cheap, to do the upgrades. But if you want a professional, to do it, then you're going to have to pay, whatever they're charging, if you know what I mean, in order to do that, and the costs involved. Unless, like with anything in life, the same thing as me taking my car to a car wash. If I'm taking it on my head to pay somebody else to do that when I know I could do it myself. So, and it's things in life with the gun teching. It's there for people who want to use it and want to upgrade it. And as soon as that support gun comes in, we're going to be stripping it apart and looking at ways to get some more out of it. And that's just the nature of gun, teching at, all the big gun tech places, that we're always looking to eke out something extra, if you know what I mean, to give something extra to customers, mostly because people are asking it for it. And it's just a natural evolution of the support of Tokyo Marui and Next Gen and any of the guns that are out there. So there's all of them. So whatever brand, there's always somebody, you know, hoping to eke out something. And Mark 23, you know, it's arguably successful, massively successful now because of the support of players and upgraders and people that have managed to turn around and say, if you do this, you can get this out of it. And then they've shown people the results, and it's then become popular. So the support of products, part availability, upgrade availability, you know, it massively, you know, goes to influence how successful something is, which is why, like I say, 10 years ago, we massively tried to help out as much as we can with as much information, tutorials, how to upgrade it, even parts, physically creating parts to try and help out, make it easily available, upgradable, so that people could easily go into and own and make it simple for it. So whereas if you buy something like that support gun, when it comes out, if we don't support it with parts, if we don't make sure that aftermarket companies make upgrade parts, if we don't try and, you know, do a tutorial video on how to, you know, upgrade it, then it is going to be very difficult to get into that support gun. But the more companies and people do, if you know what I mean, and support groups and stuff do to help streamline entry into these gun platforms, the easier it gets. Scorpion Owners Group, a massive group that sort of supports and helps itself. Scorpion got in massive, so it's sort of all part, but you know, it's the groups and the support is kind of like helping get these guns to be as big as what they are. So.
Yeah, but that group's also got a lot of dickheads in it as well that don't know what they're talking about and spend more time breaking other people's guns. So, I mean, what would you say to the, like, I mean, I've always subscribed to that. You spend all this money, you know, so take a, you know, like a 416 or something like that. You know, you've not bought a cheap gun. Why should you then have to throw more money at it? You know,
it comes down to the player, don't you think? So, like, does that player want to get, you know, more range, get more trigger response, get more this and that, if you know what I mean? So it's there's always going to be
paying a premium. So why is there not more responsibility from, say, someone like TM or another brand? Because we know that TM are quite set in their ways in what they do. That, you know, if you're asking that level of commitment from a customer, that you would deliver a higher quality product, which means you don't need to do that. I mean, you go and buy a Ferrari, they don't turn around and go, right, now you've bought a Ferrari, you need to spend another 20 grand on upgrading the engine because it's not really going to do what you want it to do.
It's only not going to be doing it because we're importing it into a country that's got higher limits and stuff. Yeah, it does everything that it needs to, from Tokyo Marui's point of view, in their country. So it's because it's going to a different country that's got different, you know, like FPS limits and stuff that things then change. But even with the Ferrari analogy, there's still going to be tuning companies, granted a very small portion of them, that take a Ferrari and somehow make it better, if you know what I mean, from that. There's Porsche tuning companies, there's you know, loads of cars from these companies.
Yeah, it's not like it's not necessary. I mean, that's the other thing. I think a lot of people go, oh, do the upgrades. I get the FPS is lower, and someone like I've never really chased the kind of the higher FPS for that reason. You can use a lot of this stuff stock though, right? At the end of the day, it's more like you say, it's a choice.
Yeah. All of the guns are. I mean, testing wise, I mean, like I say, Airsoft Action have done loads of good videos on proving how far they do go, if you know what I mean. But the stock one on 3.2s, it will lift 3.2s, which is an important, you know, piece of information to put out there because some guns don't lift 3.2s out of the box. So the fact that it will lift 3.2s out of the box is a great thing, you know. So so you know instantly you can buy the heaviest ammo available and you can lift it well. The problem is like I say, the speed to target, so that you suffer on that. So but most of them will go sort of 50, 60 meters, you know, on those 3.2s. If we drop down the ammos, it's going to go less distance. So you know, someone with, like, say, 2s, if you know what I mean, is never going to ever be able to reach the same distance as 3s. Not unless they go for a different shot type that they're not happy with, i.e., you know, skying the shot, if you know what I mean. So then it floats and then is ultimately artillery, you know, which is no longer airsoft. So, yeah.
So what you're saying basically is that out of the box, the guns are not made for our market, and that's the reason why the upgrades happen more often here. So out of the box in Japan or China or wherever, it would be perfect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because their legal limit is 300, right?
Yeah, 300 in Japan. So any of their tuning upgrades would be for things like improved trigger response or for faster rates of fire. For a long time in airsoft there was this trend, because our country is limited to 350 FPS. We were and gun techs, a lot of them were making guns. And obviously players themselves, high rate of fire, because that's the only thing they could increase. So we can't get an increase in FPS, so let's get an increase in rounds per second instead, because there was no limit on that, which is, arguably why there probably should be a limit. So, but yeah, it's people like upgrading, people like tuning. It's, like I say, it's a hobby in itself, and there's computer games now where you can take a gun and you can pull out the parts and you can put in a longer barrel or a different trigger group and stuff like that. People love that customization to it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can buy this gun and then you then want to know what all these amazing different things are that you can do it. And yeah, to some people it's daunting because they feel the pressure from other people around them that they have to upgrade. You don't have to do that. That's their personal choice to just upgrade because it's either a hobby to them or interesting to them or fun. So it could just be fun. You could just enjoy upgrading just because it's fun to see what your gun's capable of doing or what you can achieve, and ways to tinker and improve it, So, but yeah, the out of box gun, you can run stock and just get a bit closer to somebody. So, speaking to some site owners, they hate long ranging guns. NGRS, when they first come out, the fact that they go so far and stuff, and like I say, 10 years ago when you were one person on a site with the next gen and everybody else just had, normal guns in air quotes, they were getting a massive reputation for just outranging everything. And now that's then led to other companies looking at, hang on a minute, why has TM done that? And then suddenly you get companies now bring out new hop units of a rotary style rather than the little windy knob on the side that would turn itself off after a while. So it's these improvements have come about because TM always pushes other people, and it's good. It's nothing but good for every other brand that's out there, because all they're going to do is keep seeing what TM do. G&G's new G2 system, great. It's seeing them bring in bolt stock for the first time, which is fantastic. So I want to see personally every single gun with bolt stop. I don't want to see any airsoft gun that doesn't turn off when it's empty. I hate firing, rounds when they're empty. So, I don't know if you guys agree with me at all. If you're not in on that.
Yeah, but then why would the TM do a high cap when they do?
I was going to say, as long as we get rid of high caps and drum mags.
For a recall, you can buy a high cap, so it negates the bolt stop as well. And it's just sort of like, if only they just stuck with one thing just to, if that's what it was there for. But then they've obviously catered in Japan to people that want to run around with high caps. So it's sort of.
Well, that's the thing. In airsoft, you've got a lot of different players, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you got those crazy people that do HPA and drum mag. You've got the
let's not talk about them though. Weirdos.
Obviously the milsim where they're the GBR people walking around with 30 rounds in a mag, and then there's 20 mags. So it's
and more power to those people. Bring the realism into it.
it's. I mean, the next gen just feels a very niche area where it's an easy way, a relatively cheap way into milsim training type thing. Weapons that guns that turn off, guns that give you that extra added immersion where they're shaking. It's not to be underestimated, that the fact that it does shake after you've had a gun, and I know it's not bruising people's arms or anything like that, and it will get knocked by other people that also have guns that shake. It does give you that added immersion, and it does it in 27 different variants, which other companies just haven't been able to catch up with. So it's a huge choice of guns that actually shake, and we've got this trend now of VR and immersion and controllers that shake and headphones that shake. And I think it just, when you're shooting at somebody runs past and the adrenaline's going, it just gives you that extra immersion into what you're actually doing, which is airsoft and shooting plastic BBs. So
we give them more realism, and then they start whinging more that they've been shot. He shot me too close. Oh, Marshall.
Just to go about what you were saying earlier about Japan, just for the people in the comment section now. Obviously, every country plays differently, and Japan is very fast paced and a heavy CQB. Obviously, the land is close up, generally quite populated. So they have a lot of CQB sites, and it's pretty fast paced, which means, as you say, is that you don't need that high FPS. You don't need to worry about the high range because it's not something that they're actually ever trying to strive for. There's some brilliant videos by Novrich when he was out there. Also, again, if you look for Matt Fury King, he has been out there several times and played Airsoft out there, and it's great to see how it's played over there. It's definitely a lot more honourable there than it is here. But I suppose starting every game with a bow before you even get into the game site is a totally different way of playing.
Maybe we can learn from that, I think. Maybe we can learn from that a little bit, so crikey.
Yeah, it was quite funny to watch because he was standing there and everyone was bowing to each other in the safe zone, and it's like, wow, that's a real different way to play.
Imagine in the UK, if a site actually forced people to do that, they'd be doing it with like fingers up, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
God, it'd be just nice to get everyone to take their hits. That'd be. If we were going to get a consensus on something, could it please be that?
So my last question of the evening, it comes down to upgrades. Obviously, you guys do gun work as well, and so it actually came from a viewer of the show. So thank you so much for that. Do you think the cost of aftermarket parts is on the high side, or is it just down to the kind of the economies of scale, or even the size of the market, especially on the TM front with proprietary dealership?
Yeah, a lot of the upgrades, especially for next gen recall, are governed originally, by there being very few manufacturers out there that actually did parts for it. So predominantly that was just one manufacturer that again didn't deal directly with customers and stuff. So costs were a little bit high, so having to go through wholesalers and it's just naturally to get anything out of Japan and all the various products that are out there. It can be quite costly and stuff. From our point of view, as from an early adopter type thing, we just remember when there wasn't parts available. So when parts did come out, we were just like, oh, thank God. And it's changed a little bit now in that we are a little bit spoiled in that there are different companies bringing parts out now, which is fantastic. So we want more companies out, forcing competition essentially, so that companies do become a bit more competitive, and companies like Leilax are now actually starting to be more open, to international stuff. A little bit too much in the mass amount of Vector products, but they still support TM and they're still doing lots of TM stuff. They're even bringing out the Leilax Prometheus air nozzle again, which they discontinued a while ago for factory problems, but that's now coming back out, which is great to see. It's they're a little bit high on the expensive side because they're from Japan. So anything from Japan is going to have that import tax on there. So but Japan market is so cool. Some of the stuff that's over there is just absolutely amazing that they do, and we only see a very, very small portion of it, and it's just, we would love to see more of it come over, if you know what I mean. So because it's just, like I say, some of it's weird and not great for UK airsoft, but some of it just fits in perfectly. So but it's a little bit on the expensive side upgrading, I mean, we're open to new manufacturers in the future, if you know what I mean, where we like with our VSR build that we do, an L96 build, we offer PDI Japan parts, which are just amazing quality, but they have this price tag on them, which is just very expensive and difficult for the average father-son that comes in and says, I just want a sniper for my son. So it's not great for them. So there are other companies like that in Taiwan based, that do like Action Army, which are much more competitive and they're obviously much more prolifically adopted by a lot of people. So money and costs and stuff, there's always going to be a cheaper solution, and if people are worried about the cost of packages and stuff, then they can come to us and we can come up with cheaper ones, if you know what I mean, or different parts and alternatives. The main thing, especially with our website and our configuration packages, was to try and streamline a package which I would love if I owned it, and if I had more money than I do, and would love to then run around with it, if you know what I mean. So, and I tried to come up with something that was very much like us, and that was something that I would want to run around with and personally use. And like I say, if somebody doesn't want that particular setup, if you know what I mean, then we can go to something else. But that's just our sort of streamlined setup. So on the little build configurator where they can choose their customization options and stuff like that. So
I know we're running out of time a little bit, but I did have someone come up to me on site and ask me a question for you, knowing that you were going to be on the show, which was, about the time that these upgrades take. So if, say you buy a package on Monday, obviously they're not sitting stock on the shelf. So what's your sort of turnaround time for a customized build? And obviously it's a bit of an open-ended question because it depends how involved it is, but on average, what do you...
I mean, it's a difficult one. So, because obviously, if somebody put an order in tomorrow, if you know what I mean, yeah, it's like great, especially if it's one of these, large packages type things. It's fantastic. So that people want to use us and trust us that much to give us money. But the problem is what happens when, I don't know, 50 people order, 100 people order. It's just me. So it's gun taken away. So that makes it very difficult to, actually offer people what they're asking, if you know what I mean, in terms of long term and stuff. So so as a small company, we've then got to make a decision on whether we scale, whether we don't scale. It's a question that I've been asking myself, and if I do scale and get another gun tech on board, is that gun tech going to be able to then do the builds which people are in theory, because they kind of know me, if you know what I mean, and know the body work that we've already done. Do they then want to somebody else to do that? And if you ask the person point blank, they would say, no, of course I don't. So I want Richard to do that. So but it becomes difficult because the bigger we get theoretically, and the more because some of these guns are SRS, as an example, have taken off massively. So and their demand for those, to those specialists out there that are doing that must be incredible. So and it's just and how do you then scale to that? And Novritsch, just an example, has built a whole company around scaling, so which quite successfully. So so when that demand's there, ideally, we've got to sort of decide whether we scale or don't scale, and it's a tough decision. So, and I mean, if there's other gun techs that found solutions to what happens when you get busy and you only have one gun tech, I'd love to know the answer on that. So it's at the moment we're working on about sort of one gun a day. We're trying to get through as many as we can, but we're using a sort of an ordering system based on, we'll try to give priority to the new builds because obviously they're important to us, but we also don't want to neglect those people that have sent in their gun and would like upgrades on a gun bought elsewhere. So and it's a difficult thing because why should they be put last, if you know what I mean, compared to other people? But it's a tough one, which we're trying to sort of find the balance for. But just as example, I think, depending on other gun techs and stuff like that, I don't know, I can't speak for them. So, but we're getting on average 20 odd, maybe 30 requests a week or inquiries a week, if you know what I mean. Not all of them will turn into people actually sending us guns. And then, so if say 5 to 10 of those turn into, people sending us in a gun, that means we're getting, more guns in that we can actually turn around. And then what happens after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? So at the moment, we're doing a sort of where we take people's names and almost like a booking in system, a bit like, how we're signed up for this podcast. We're putting in people's names for certain days. And that way they don't physically have to send in the gun. They can just kind of book a spot. And we've booked up until October at the moment, I think. So just as example of how many requests we have for work, if you know what I mean. And today, just an example, a gentleman wanted to drop a VSR off, if you know what I mean, and get work on. And I was like, I so just want to help a customer out. And
I'll pick up tomorrow, right? I'll pick up tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We all know that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit on customers in that they're going to have to sort of, balance the fact that if they want to use one particular gun tech and that gun tech is really good, there are going to be other customers that do want to use that gun tech. So I don't know what the easy answer is for somebody then buying online that wants to use, that gun tech, because, they've just done a big purchase and they should get a fast service. But the fast service currently that people are expecting is next day to 3 days for gun builds and stuff like that. And I don't know. Unless a gun tech's sitting around twiddling his fingers, waiting for that to come in, he's not going to be able to just suddenly react to that, So not unless the company's paying for a lot of gun techs, so which then brings into question its own gun tech quality and stuff, QC and all that sort of thing. So we spend a crap load of time on QC. We have to range test all of our guns, which takes time. We have to put at least 500 to 1,000 rounds through each gun to make sure that it actually, doesn't fail straight away. We have to do shimming. We have to do checking, gearboxes. We have to do hop units that, if somebody comes in and asks for a gearbox upgrade or something like that, new gears, if we send the gun out and it's not shooting straight, we haven't been asked to do anything gear related or anything like that, but we're still going to get slated publicly for it not being good accuracy. So we've taken the choice to, instead of doing, just targeted upgrades, which no disrespect to any workshop out there that's doing that, because there is a need for it. There is a need for fast turnarounds on just a broken gun, But for that high end that people are asking and expecting of us, we've taken the decision to not try to do targeted fixed repairs and try and offer that whole package, which unfortunately then means more time on people's guns, because, range testing, how many gun techs, in their bedrooms, have an actual 100-meter range, if you know what I mean, when they can go and test, if you know what I mean. There's not many. So, and if they don't have that range test, which means they're then working on a gun and sending it out without actually checking to see if the hop unit they've installed is even straight. So, which is okay for the at-home person, because you can just then go to site and you're like, oh no, I've done it wrong, and maybe do it in your car or just put up with it and then do it another day. But for a shop sending it out with a reputation that then gets destroyed potentially, in one post, publicly, it's just, it's not something we're willing to risk, if you know what I mean, which is then leading to more delays. So, but we're trying our best, to get through the backlogs.
It's interesting you say that, and I know it shows a bit longer than we typically go for, but QC is a conversation that I'm going to be having with another retailer, and when we talk about how things come in from import, from wholesalers, about getting dead stock on arrival, and the general QC from manufacturers being a big issue. It's the same reason why I recommend players always have a chrono at home, because the amount of new rifles you have that haven't even gone through the chrono yet before you turn up on site and find out you can't use them. At the end of the day, if you want something and want it to perform well, it's going to take time, because you need it to be done and done properly.
Well, there's a big problem with, obviously, well, I don't know if it's a problem as such, but just the nature of business itself. But there is a lot of box selling, so with people, buying in stuff from China or whatever, and then just selling it by the box, essentially. We tried to sell Keimer stuff, that kind of thing, so because we were getting asked by local walk-in customers, can you get me this? Can you get me that? And usually one in 3, I think we had, if you know what I mean, had a problem of some description. So we were spending actual labor hours to fix these for customers. And should we be doing that on a gun that's priced at 120 quid, So where we're making a margin of about 5 quid, it's just we've then spent more in labor hours than, helping that customer and getting him sorted, which we have to do as a UK store. And it's ultimately lost us money, So it's a difficult thing especially when I see a thread today, possibly, saying, go overseas to this particular company, if you know what I mean, because it was absolutely dirt cheap, loads cheaper, like 50% cheaper than buying at a UK store. So why shop at a UK store? Truth is, at the UK store, you can go back to them. So you're going to really struggle in a different country going back to them, So, and that's where they can kind of get away with that to a degree. But UK stores cannot do that. There's just that you instantly going to get that person coming back to you and saying, look, my gun doesn't fit. And that's obviously up to each and every store to kind of manage that, if you know what I mean. But for us, we decided just not to sell them anymore. So we're sticking to guns that we know for 100% fact that we can get spare parts for. If I can't get a spare part for it, I don't want to stock the gun. So simple as that. So it just, as a brand, we like G&G. We can get the parts for those. As much as people might hate on that, we can, so if somebody coming in that's got sub 200 quid to spend, father and son type thing, G&G Raider, it's, it's just a great gun. So, you know, for the money, absolutely great gun. And we can get spare parts from G&G for that. So we're happy about that, that we can sell that with confidence. If they do have a problem, we can help them out. So, but if we start selling the Keimer stuff and the stuff that companies, there's no comeback to them, you know, the manufacturers and stuff, none at all. So you know, you're buying something that absolutely there's, and I know that's saying something coming from TM, you know, who comeback coming from, but at least we can get spare parts through wholesale in a roundabout way, if you know what I mean. So and then offer that then support via UK stores essentially, you know. So
and where do people go if they are looking either to go to the store or order from you online?
Yeah, so we're in Lincolnshire, based at a town called Boston, or near there, so in a small town called Sutterton. And yeah, you can go to eagle6.co.uk, and you can see us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So
it's a very nice looking site you got there as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. It costs money, so.
Oh, don't I know it? Well, Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it, and it's nice not to talk too much about the TM fanboyism. At least until next week. We'll let it go for this week. Jim, Sarah, anything going on this week for you guys?
No, not me. I'm just working. I'm actually not going to be playing Airsoft until NAF.
Nice.
Yeah, bit of a break for me. What about you, Jim?
I know, I'm just phoning Richard just to see if he answers.
I'm trying to casually ignore it.
Oh, that was brilliant. Just watching your face. So that's that number works.
To come in next, so.
I think it's someone who's just putting an order for a Mark 18. They've commented on YouTube. they want to know why you're busy talking to us and not doing their.
Where's my bills? I can't believe you.
Oh, you got time to go on Airsoft Radio?
Well, Jim, anything going on for you, mate?
Loads of stuff, but I'm not gonna bore people with the details.
What about you, Richard? Anything planned this week? Any crazy builds got planned?
Yeah, lots of lots of builds. So never ending amount of builds. So yeah.
Well, that's always a good thing.
I mean, there's an interesting one coming up, which is quite looking forward to, which is kind of like a M16 type build, if you know what I mean, from a next gen recoil base, which is pretty cool. So looking forward to doing that. It's a bit sort of out there. I love when I get a chance to actually do some custom stuff as opposed to just, you know, like not saying this the regular builds are just regular, but you know they are the everyday type thing, if you know what I mean. So it's nice when we do something a bit crazy out there. So
I love the M16. So that's I'll look forward to seeing that. You normally take a video or a photo of them as they are going out, so I thoroughly look forward to that for sure. Well, guys, that is it for this week on Airsoft Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. Join us next week, Monday, 8 p.m, as we have Dust Monkey coming on the show. So if you're into your loadouts, your post-apocalyptic especially, and one of the only Airsofters I've seen who's had a loadout shed by Antwood, or D Antwood, however way you want to pronounce it. So that'll be very cool next week. Richard, thank you so much once again for coming on the show.
No,
and guys, don't forget to check out eagle6.co.uk, and we shall see you next week.